The Overcomer. How come I ended up under the same roof, the same sheet of the university's football star? Right now, I still can't think of a single thing that could lead us that way, but all I can remember is that I'm a returnee student at a university. I wasn't able to graduate on time with my original batchmates since I had financial issues. Because of that, even though it's hard for me, I had to stop. But I really wanted to finish my schooling, and that's why I worked multiple jobs just so I could save up some money to return to school. It may sound easy, but it's not. My body took a toll. I had to sacrifice my rest for a minuscule amount of money. Well, at the very least, I was able to return, and that's what matters. Hey, Daryl, you're looking great, huh? My previous junior and now my classmate, Jock Hernandez, greeted me with a grin, to which I enthusiastically returned. Hey, Jock, don't be late for the second time, okay? I joked as we had a high five. We don't want another drama in the dean's office. He laughed at my retort, yet started to boast how much of an actor he was for crying when the dean started berating him. I was so focused on Jock's presence that I didn't realize someone was standing in my way, resulting in me bumping into them and dropping my bag. I looked up only to see a towering, quite handsome, and, I must say, muscular man. His eyes were so intense that it made my knees buckle under me. I'm an average figure of a man, but compared to his physique, I'm nothing. Sorry, I muttered, almost out of breath, but he only looked at me. Cyrus, my man! Jock suddenly slumped his arm around my shoulders, shaking me a bit. This is my senior I'm talking about. Meet Daryl Dominique. Daryl, meet Jean Cyrus, the star player of our football team. Well, the pride of our university, he grinned at me. That explained his enormous physique. Hi, I muttered. I was at a loss for words. I couldn't take my eyes off his intense blue ones. What's with you, Daryl? Cat got your tongue? I know Jean here is a catch, but don't be that obvious, Jock playfully sneered at me. So I jabbed his side to make him stop, which he did with a loud grunt. I brushed off what he said and extended my hand for a handshake. Nice meeting you, Jean Cyrus, I smiled at him. I was expecting him to just shrug it off since I could feel the tenacity in his eyes. But I was wrong. He was actually quite nice. He took it and gave me a firm grip, his hands clearly bigger than mine. Nice meeting you too, sophomore, he gave me a side smile. Oh, by the way, Jean, Daryl's single, so if you're interested. Jock wasn't able to finish what he was saying because I butted in. I'll be going now. See you later, guys. I jogged on the way to my classroom with a heated face. I know I just met the guy, but something about him really captivated me. I guess that's why he's called the star. For the last time, I looked back to see if Jock was following me, since our class was about to start, but instead, I found Jean's blue eyes staring back at me. After 2 weeks. A couple of weeks had passed since, and I'd become good friends with Jock and Jean. Jean wasn't as intimidating as he seemed, but I couldn't help but notice that he was quite frigid with girls. I heard that he was gay, and he wasn't trying to hide it at all, but girls still wanted to straighten him up? Why couldn't they just be happy for him? I'm a proud member of the rainbow flag too. Though I'm not boasting about it, I'd never do something like goad someone to become the gender that I like. Though that's not a problem to me. His fans became the problem. Both girls and guys were asking me to come with them to a cafe and want me to take Jean with me. But I can't just do that. I can't just drag someone if they don't want to in the first place. And I had other things to attend to, so I tried my best to decline their offers, as politely as possible. My usual day started, and it was boring as hell. First thing in the morning, math. Who wouldn't get bored when math started to have letters in it, and the most tiring event was knowing it was the whole day's schedule. I dozed off multiple times, and I didn't realize it was already the end of the class. I was lucky that none of them noticed me sleeping. I woke up to everyone packing their bags, so I did the same. Hey, there's a newly opened cafe near here. Want to try that? I heard a girl giggling. Yeah, I heard Jean Cyrus was going there as well, her friend bounced. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. They're at it again. Jean Cyrus is really, really popular, and now that his team just won against the other university, his popularity has just skyrocketed. Even some international leagues started to scout him. What a lucky guy. Now that I think about it, I'm his total opposite. In everything. He's the star, I'm just dust. But he still had the time to hang out with us sophomores, even though he should be spending his time with his fellow freshmen. Adding to that, he's spending time with us, who are clearly not in his league. Strange. But I shrugged off that thought as I yawned for the last time and took my bag. I was ready to leave when the girl I heard giggling stood in front of me. Daryl, please go with us, she looked at me with hopeful and begging eyes. Huh? Why? Because you're the friendly one here. You can talk to Cyrus for us, please. What the? Did she really just call me shameful in a modest way? I'm sorry, but I've got things to do. I'll pay for your meal and drink. Just please go with us tonight, she begged, her hands clasped in front of her as if she was praying. I wasn't able to answer as another man approached me. He's quite smaller than me in physique, but something in him made me feel like he's a bigger person in there. He's at the top of our class, so maybe that's what I'm sensing. No, I think not. Daryl, just go with us once. We've been inviting you all this time, but you're refusing. You're not taking us for fools, are you? He looked at me with disdain, so I had to swallow the lump forming in my throat before I let out an exasperated smile. Rodrick, I'm really sorry. I'm not making you out for a fool, but I really had things to do. Like what? Rodrick raised his brow while his hands folded over his chest. I could sense there's nothing friendly about this guy. I wasn't able to give him a proper answer, just gibberish, because I just couldn't tell him my secret. I just can't, especially to someone like him. Sorry, I have to go, I mumbled and proceeded to walk past him, despite the pleadings of his girlfriends. I wanted to go out too and make the most of my student life, but I have responsibilities. But a hand grabbed my forearm. His grip was getting tighter the longer he held me. Are you trying to seduce Jean? Rodrick hissed as his eyes narrowed at me. I know you like him. I mean, who wouldn't? But remember this, Daryl Dominique. You'll always be a fan of him and nothing more. Maybe something less. Maybe he's spending some time with you right now, but you know you're not gonna end up with him. I winced when I felt his fingernails digging trenches in my forearm. I'm not doing anything like that, I whizzed. Yes, you would, he sputtered. I yanked my arm away from him as I felt the pain getting worse. Is it that impossible for two people with the same gender identity to just be friends? I yelled at him before walking away. I could see surprise written all over his face. I was furious at how low he thinks of me and Jean, and I know if I don't walk away right now, I'll probably run into a mess. After school. I dropped my things in the locker room at the cafe I was working at and put on my apron and the smile I always use when I serve the customers. It was getting late at night and my shift would be soon over, so I took a mental note about the assignments I needed to get done before tomorrow. I was occupied with my thoughts when I heard slurred curses from afar. Multiple drunks barged into the cafe. Their sudden appearance caused a slight commotion, so I hurriedly went to look after it before it worsened. But soon I realized that they were my classmates. And not just any classmate, it's Rodrick's company, and he's looking as angry as ever. His eyes were bloodshot, and he seemed really drunk. If I confront him now, I'm sure that won't end well. Now that we had a little commotion earlier, I don't want any trouble. So I backed away before they could see me and asked the other employee to handle them as I served other tables. But, oh, look who's over here! A boisterous laugh caught my attention. It was Rodrick. He wobbled towards me, and I felt my gut telling me to run, but my feet stayed. Isn't it the high and mighty Daryl who yelled at me? Rodrick, you're drunk, man. Maybe you should just go home, I tried to reason. Please. I could feel all the eyes on me, especially those of Jean. He was with them with Jock on his back. I think he's the only sober person in that group. He gazed at me with great concern. I'm not drunk, he said in between hiccups. You are. You think I forgot what you did? You spat on my face! I did not do that. I may have yelled at him, but I didn't spit. Maybe he's just imagining things, and the alcohol probably makes it worse. Please, just go home. I was cut off when he punched me in the face. The customers began to scurry away because of this, and other employees were trying to pull Rodrick away from me, but they couldn't pry him off of me, and they threw us both in the back alley. Wait, manager, help! I screamed for him while my classmate just beat me up. He only looked at me with contempt. Do you have any idea how much trouble you've caused us? He yelled at me instead of helping me. Settle that. Kenny, my colleague in the cafe, tried to help me, but he was pushed inside by the manager, who said a lot of customers needed their attention. I tried to run from Rodrick, but he was just too fast and caught me. Where are you going? So, you're just a servant here, huh? That's why you've been avoiding us all this time, because you're a poor ass. You have no right to yell at me like that, peasant. He picked up a chair and was about to hit me when a shadow loomed over me. Jean? Rodrick's voice came out in a squeak as the tall man stood in front of him. Put it down now. His stern voice was enough for him to stop. Rodrick dropped the chair down and, as if on cue, the police came over and we were sent to the station. Inside the police station, We were interrogated by the police, and even though I was the only one cooperating, they already knew the reason for it all. So we were lectured by the cop in charge, and we were sent on our way because we're just students, but not without treating my wounds first. I think the cop's litany wasn't effective on Rodrick at all, even though he sobered up a bit. I tried to make amends with him, but it was all futile. Even the police said that I shouldn't socialize with him, which is rather difficult since we're classmates. After the interrogation, when we got out, Rodrick's friend took him home while Jean was left with me. "Are you sure you're fine?" His voice was laced with concern. I wanted to answer yes, but my swollen ankle just wouldn't let me. Rodrick really did give it a beating, but I still tried to hide it. He kneeled in front of me with his bag facing me. My brows rose in confusion. "Scoot up." "No, I can walk." "You can't hide the unbalanced distribution of your weight on your feet. I've been through that. Not a fan of swollen ankles either." "Thank you," I muttered as I rested my throbbing head on the broad shoulder of Jean, who's carrying me right now. "For what?" Jean asked. "For saving me? I almost got killed if it weren't for you." "Don't sweat it," he chuckled. His deep voice was so calming that it made me want to go to sleep right then and there. "You can drop me off here. This is where my apartment is," I told him, and he settled me gently. "Take some rest. Don't worry about any absence or suspension. I'll be the one explaining this to the dean." Just like he said, I took a couple of weeks off from school, and from my job as well. Jean handled the excuse letter for me. He even visited me and brought food. He's a really nice guy. But I'm not dumb enough not to notice anything. By the way he treated me, I would think he likes me, but I don't want to assume anything. After 2 weeks, even with bruises, I had to go back to school. I got into the school and all their eyes were on me. I was expecting this since I have a huge bluish-purplish mark on the side of my eye. Perhaps they already know what happened. I saw Jock and waved at him. He saw me and I knew he saw me, but he didn't wave back. That's unusual of him. I shrugged it off because maybe he's just thinking something, but even in the classroom, he's avoiding me, and I don't know what's wrong with him. It was lunchtime and he was nowhere to be found, so I decided to buy my own food when all of a sudden, 3 freshmen approached me. They're huge, but not as big as Jean. They were all grinning menacingly. "Hey, sophomore, can you come with us for a sec?" I don't think That's not a question. I knew I had to obey them, if not, worse might happen. Without anyone knowing, they took me behind the gymnasium, where not a lot of students would go on a normal day. They pushed me hard against the wall. "Come on, Sophie," a mock name they gave me as a sophomore. "Give us your money. We know you got a job. Might as well, share your blessings." They cooed and laughed together. I can't. It's for a hard kick to my stomach made me kneel. "Didn't we tell you we're not asking questions?" I clutched my stomach on the ground while they rammed my bag and took my money, and then they left me there. It happened 2 to 3 times in a week, but I managed to hide some of my money from them so I could still pay for my expenses. But today was the worst. They beat me and left me bleeding. They even took my books, so I had to buy them again. I was so thankful that Jean found me there. He immediately urged me to go to the infirmary, but I decided not to because they'll probably tell me to take a rest. But I still have to work. I arrived at the cafe I'm working at and immediately put on my apron, despite the pain. "Daryl, what are you doing here?" my good colleague Chelsea asked me with a concerned voice, but all I gave her was a tired nod as I could see them in a hectic situation. Customers were coming in and they're halfway through serving them all. "Let's just move, okay? We have a lot of things to do," I sighed and tried to bury my pain with a smile. I could feel all their stares, but I didn't mind that. After my shift, the manager approached me. "What are you doing here?" I could sense the brewing fury in his voice. "My shift is from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., sir." "I know, but I already fired you, so why are you still here?" Sir, what do you mean? This... "Oh yes it can. You brought that ruckus into my place, and now you want me to take you in? Don't be ridiculous." He yelled at me and pushed me out of his cafe into the same alley where I was beaten. But he was kind enough to pay me my salary for the day. It was raining cats and dogs that night, and I had no umbrella with me, so I returned to my place wet and hopeless. But still, I'm thankful I have a roof over my head and a bed at the end of the day. I just need to find another job, that's what I need to do. It was hard for me to find another part-time job since most of them are hiring full-timers, which I obviously can't do right now without compensating for my school. One day ago. "Hey, you look tired, are you okay?" A voice from behind asked me as I walked down the hallway. "Jean, I was quite amused to see him again, since most of the time, people are just getting away from me. I'm fine, what about you? Still the star? I joked at him, to which he laughed. Gosh, his voice really just calms me down. Hey, I'm just a player. The National League talked to me about it, and I told them I'd think about it. Good for you. By the way, do you have time for... The sound of my phone interrupted what he was gonna say. I internally clicked my tongue since I felt like he was gonna say something important, but I had to answer this call. My eyes widened when I heard the news. I immediately ran, leaving Jean without explanation. I arrived at my apartment and saw all my things outside my room. What's all this about? Oh God, Melinda, why? Rules are rules, Daryl. You can't keep something you can't afford to pay for. I've been giving you mercy for the past 4 months, but you haven't paid your rent. I just can't do it any longer. I'm sorry, she said in a monotonous tone, though she couldn't look me in the eyes. I was lost. I felt like this was gonna be my end. I literally have nothing with me. I had no life inside the school, and I had no job to pay my bills. And now, I'd even lost my place to stay. What have I done so wrong in my life that even the heavens punish me? I know I'm strong, but I still break. I'm just a human. I knew it was all over. I couldn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. I wandered around since I had nowhere to go, and somehow I passed by the famous bridge in town. I stood on top of the railings and looked at the water below the bridge. I was ready to end it all. But a force tackled me off the edge. What are you doing? That same familiar voice made me snap from my thoughts. His warm hands brought me a sense of feeling. I was numb by the pain, but right now that my senses had returned, I wasn't able to control my emotion. The heaviness returned to my heart, and I cried on his shoulder. Jean, what should I do? He held me tight and whispered, just for tonight, come with me. He led me to his own apartment, and he let me stay there for as long as I needed. But I just couldn't accept that offer, so I had to do something. I cleaned his abode in return, while in the morning I'm looking for a part-time job. I thought everything was running smoothly until he asked me, I don't see you at school anymore. Did you reschedule your classes? I can't bring myself to lie. He was just being too good for me, so I answered truthfully. I'm not going to school anymore. Why? I couldn't answer him. So when were you going to tell me that you're being bullied? It's none of your business. Of course it is. Why are you so affected? I didn't mean to raise my voice, but it turned out like that. Because I love you! I was shocked when I heard his confession, and the only thing left in my mouth was a whisper. Why? He ran his fingers through his hair and groaned. I can't explain, but I really want to see your smile. From the moment I laid my eyes on you, I knew I wanted to be with you. He held my shoulders and looked down on me. Please, tell me anything I can help you with. I don't want to see you suffer alone. It pains me. I sighed and said, You've helped me more than enough. Thank you. I bestowed him a smile, but I can't give you an answer now. He gave me a sweet smile before giving me a hug, saying, I know, I'll wait. After 3 weeks, I was able to find a part-time job online. It was really good for my current situation. I wanted to surprise Jean with the news, so I cooked him dinner. He arrived just after I barely prepared the cooked food on the table. Hey, I smell something good, he said. Yeah, I prepared some baked mac. Want to try it? I smiled at him. We ate our dinner in a comfortable silence. We cleaned the table, and he was about to wash the dishes as compensation for me cooking. You seemed happy, he started. Yeah, and I have some good news for you too, I cheered, which gained his full attention. So, I found an online part-time job. His smile widened when he heard me say that. Good stuff, man, he cheered and lunged forward to hug me, to which I returned, enveloping him with my shorter arms. It was blissful until he gently pushed me away, and looked me in the eyes with his softer ones, saying, So now that you got a job, would you still stay with me? The longing in his eyes pierced my heart. I chuckled and tiptoed over to him, placing my lips on his for a second. If you want me to leave, then I'll go. I barely even finished my sentence when he pulled me closer by my waist and gave me a passionate kiss. Stay, he breathes out, eyes still glued on me. That night was filled with passion. I've gathered all my strength to confess to him, but what I don't have is the courage to go back to school after what happened to me. I'm still recuperating. Jean took a shower before going to bed, and he left his phone by the bedside. I tried to ignore it and tried to focus on what we just did. It happened so fast. It feels like yesterday I met this guy, and now we've already slept together. I felt my cheeks heating up, but it was soon interrupted by the continuous ringing of his phone. I couldn't bring myself to look at it because that was an invasion of privacy, but it was ringing like crazy, so I took a peek, and it was an alarm. Tonight, St. Pabras Alley, Rodrick Heils, it said on the notification bar. You can now use the bathroom, he said while drying his hair with a towel. What's this? I asked. I knew something wasn't right when I read Rodrick's name. Why would Jean want to meet him tonight? My heart pounded in my chest as I thought of him falling in love with someone just after I returned his feelings. How cruel could someone be? Are you with him? I stammered. No. He cupped my cheeks and stared at my teary eyes. It was hard for him to say what he wanted to say, but it was just as hard for me to wait for him to speak. It's for you. It's because of that man that you don't smile anymore. I don't want to see you suffer because of him. I couldn't answer. I sighed in relief when I learned that he wasn't with Rodrick, yet a churn in my stomach made my heart skip a beat. He wanted to take revenge for my sake. He told me everything he knew. From the mastermind of those people who extorted money from me to the reason why even Jock is avoiding me. It was all Rodrick. He was even the reason why I was kicked out of my apartment, even though Melinda promised to help me. I felt furious. I didn't deserve any of that. Just because I could handle this situation well doesn't mean I deserved it. I wanted him to feel the pain that he brought upon me. I wanted to see him bawl. Take me with you. That's all that left my mouth. As you wish, my love. We went to the location where Rodrick would be, and I saw a man already beating him up. He was crawling away from him the same way I was, and I heard his helpless pleas. I wanted to feel the satisfaction, but I couldn't. Right now I could see him bleeding, and there's no fulfillment. Unbeknownst to me, my feet moved and I found myself running towards him. Stop! I yelled at the top of my lungs when I saw the attacker pick up a plank of wood and was ready to pummel him. My scream stopped the man. I kneeled in front of Rodrick and checked his face, and it was filled with cuts and bruises. Hey, stay with me. Jean already called the ambulance. Why are you here? Rodrick muttered, just barely above a whisper. He peered at him through his half-lidded, sore eyes. Daryl! I heard Jean yell my name. I darted my head his way, only to notice that the attacker was about to hit me with a plank of wood. I shut my eyes and waited for the pain to come. But nothing happened. Only a loud thud was heard, and when I opened my eyes, I saw the attacker dropped unconscious on the ground and Jean standing there, heaving. After 20 minutes, we managed to get Rodrick to the hospital and gave him all the treatment he needed. I talked to the cashier and she said, "That'll be $700. That amount was too much for me, yet I needed to help him. I took my card and gave it to the nurse, but a hand stopped me. I'll pay for it, Jean said. No, I have savings. But you need that for school. I need it for the future, but he needs it right now. I gave him a smile, and besides, he's not yours or my responsibility, but I felt like I should be the one doing this. For exactly 7 days, Rodrick stayed there. On the last day, I visited. How are you doing? I asked as I sat on the seat beside his bed. Fine, he shortly replied. Why'd you do that? It's about time that I helped him. I don't know, I answered truthfully. I just felt like that was the right thing to do at that moment. There was thick silence in between us, so I broke it. What did you do to make that happen to you? He was hesitant for a moment, yet he still told me. I was never accepted in my family. I've always been told I'm the weakest one because I'm never the achiever. No trophies, no gold medals. In a family of achievers, your status is measured by how many awards you get, he muttered, and the only time I feel strong is whenever I see you suffering under my command. Don't get me wrong, it's not funny, but I couldn't help but smile because he was actually being honest with me. It's okay, I muttered. I know that none of that is actually okay, but at least you're fine now. After 20 minutes, I returned home and Jean asked me, how could you forgive him that easily? I don't really know, I smiled. Maybe because I've just realized that behind the cruelest person you may know, a broken child resides. After 1 month. I returned to school after exactly 1 month of absence. I knew this wouldn't be an easy task to begin again, but I have a loving boyfriend who's helped me through these trials. Are you ready? Jean asked me as he held my hand while we stood outside the classroom door. I nodded as I steeled my resolve. I entered the room and was greeted by the scrutinizing stares of people, but I don't mind that. I know my worth and I know my story. I saw Rodrick with a bandage on his desk, awkwardly smiling at me. I mirrored his gesture. Before I finally left for the class, I glanced in Jean's direction. looking at me as if he was so proud. I mouthed a simple "I love you" to him before I proceeded to my seat. This, I know. I'm the stronger version of myself. Rodrick may have done some pretty bad things to me, but I gained a lot of things through it. I gained strength, him as a friend, and my friendship with Jock even strengthened, and Jean as my loving partner. The end. Do you think that Rodrick deserves forgiveness after what he did? Is Daryl strong for forgiving his bully, or are his actions just a sign of naiveness? Share your thoughts below. Thanks for watching, and consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force, and stay wholesome.